Hello, fifth grade. We're doing something a little bit different today for independent reading. Today we are going to go through an article together that is going to prep us for an awesome class session we have planned for tomorrow. So please take your Imagine This Was Your School article, track the front page, and I will read it with you. Track your text, annotate as we go. Imagine this was your school. In 1951, there were 21 states that forced black students and white students to go to separate schools. These schools were supposed to be separate but equal, but they never were. Where white schools tended to be modern and comfortable, black schools like this one were old and dilapidated. This 16-year-old had had enough. In an act of tremendous bravery, she decided to do something about it. What followed changed America forever. You can see your text feature. This is the 16-year-old right here. And that is a picture of what a school looked like for a black student. Turn the page. Separate but not equal. It was 1951 in the rural community of Farmville, Virginia. For black Americans, it was a difficult time. Not only in Farmville, but also across the U.S. A racist policy called segregation had created deep inequality. Under segregation, black Americans and white Americans were kept separate. Blacks could not ride in the same railroad cars as whites. Black people were forced to sit at the back of buses while white people sat at the front. There were separate drinking fountains, and some restaurants would not even allow black people to come inside. Schools throughout the South and elsewhere were racially segregated as well. In Virginia, a law actually forbade black students and white students from going to school together. Supposedly, these schools were separate but equal. But in reality, there was a profound difference between them. And there's two pictures that you're going to look at and analyze later. Take, for instance, the schools of Farmville. Barbara's school, the all-black Robert Russa Moton High School, was in disrepair. The toilets were old and cracked. The stall doors were rickety and often wouldn't close. The classroom ceilings were so leaky that students sat in their desks with umbrellas to keep water from making the ink on their papers run. In the winter, students sitting near the wood-burning stoves overheated, while students far from the stoves were so cold that they shivered in their coats and their hats. Smoke from the stoves eddied into the classroom, causing sneezing and watery eyes. Kids got sick often. Flip the page. The school was also wildly overcrowded. Moton High had been designed for 180 students, yet 450 were enrolled. To create more space, shacks with wood frames and tar-coated paper walls were built. Students called these makeshift classrooms chicken coops because that's what they look like. Some classes were held in a dilapidated bus in the parking lot. Meanwhile, across town, white kids attended Farmville High, which had a real cafeteria, a fully equipped auditorium, spacious classrooms, locker rooms, and modern heating. When Moton parents and teachers complained to the school board, they were told a new school would be built soon. It was clear, though, that soon would probably never come. Most funds were going to white students. The only thing going to Moton were Farmville's old textbooks. What could Barbara do? Barbara lived in a small tobacco farm. She had a reputation as an introspective and hard-working girl. She took care of her younger sisters and two brothers, did chores, working in the fields, and feeding the animals. She enjoyed solitude and could often be found in the woods behind her house. She didn't have a lot of put-on airs about her, her grandmother said proudly. She was a country girl. But as her classmates would soon learn, there was a lot more to Barbara than met the eye. Underneath her reserved demeanor was enormous courage and growing outrage. She loved learning. She loved her teachers. She longed to have the school that she and her classmates deserved. But in the 1950s, challenging whites was dangerous. Black people were treated with contempt and bigotry. In the South, a terrible practice known as lynching, in which a mob of white people would kill a black person for some supposed offense, without trial or any kind of legal proceeding, was common. Because judges, juries, and police officers were all white, these killings usually went unpunished. Yet Barbara was not afraid. She believed that it was up to her to do something. But what? A bold plan. Fifth grade, I'm hoping that you're taking notes and annotating as we go. Make sure that those texts are all marked up with lots of beautiful thoughts. A bold plan. One night, after Barbara said her prayers, an idea came to her. A strike. If she and her classmates refused to go to school, the school board would have to do something, wouldn't they? And surely nobody would harm children peacefully protesting the substandard conditions of their school, right? The very next day, Barbara convinced a handful of her classmates to put aside their fears and join her strike. But they had to keep their plan top secret. If their parents or teachers knew what they were up to, they would forbid the strike. Plus, Barbara wanted to make sure that the teachers could not be accused of permitting the strike. If people thought the teachers knew about it beforehand, they could lose their jobs. On April 23rd, 1951, the day of the strike, a student called the principal from a payphone. Disguising his voice, he said some Moton students were loitering, that means hanging out, downtown and in trouble with the police. The principal reacted predictably. Black students in trouble with all-white police was a serious matter. He hurried to his car and sped from the school. The moment he was gone, students delivered notes to each other, to each classroom calling an assembly. Barbara had written the notes and signed them as B.J., which was how Principal Boyd Jones usually signed notes. Barbara shared those same initials. How convenient. I wonder why she signed B.J. on her notes. Think about it. When the curtain rose to reveal Barbara instead of the principal on stage, everyone was shocked. Then she began to speak. She talked about the inferior conditions of their school. She talked about the fact that the school board had denied them proper funding. She talked about how hard it was to learn in this environment. Are we just going to accept these conditions, she asked, or are we going to do something about it? By the time her speech was over, many students were on Barbara's side. The entire school body walked out in peaceful protest. But this was just the beginning. The fight was far from won. And then there are 2 more pictures with a nice little caption, which you can read about those pictures, and a to be continued. 5th grade, your job for the rest of independent reading time is to answer the 5 quick check questions on the last page of your packet. Put your name and your college at the top and do your best thinking for all 5 questions. I think if you go back to the text, you'll find they're kind of easy questions, but give it your best try. Bring this packet to class tomorrow. When will you bring it to class? That's right, tomorrow. Okay. Really excited, 5th grade. Do your best work. When you're done with your 5 questions, track your novel for the rest of your time. Thank you, guys. Bye.